Hey, Maxwell, don't forget that 500-page script is due tomorrow.
I don't think I'm ever going to have kids.
Hey, Mr. Goble. Here you go, my full 500-page script. Would be a shame if I fell in. Oh, darn. I guess I dropped all my papers for my script that I spent a year on. Guess I have to pick them up and restart from scratch.
What's the... Maxwell, what... This just says script on it.
Yes. What about it?
Maxwell, there's no way this is a real script.
What? Oh, yeah, it's a real script. I just have a character that says only script.
So you have a character who only says script,
Yes.
and you felt the need to write an entire page...
It's his monologue.
A monologue.
Mm-hmm.
And... Maxwell... This is just an excerpt from The Lord of the Rings.
Yes. What about it? I have a character that only...
Maxwell, if you're going to tell me that you have a character who only reads the entirety of The Lord of the Rings, I'm going to go crazy.
What? No, that'd be absurd. He only says the first three.
There are only 3.
What about The Hobbit?
What the Maxwell, you have had a year to write this script. What have you been doing?
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Maxwell, this is a CVS receipt.
Yes?
And it's in the script. How?
It's backstory.
How is this backstory?
The main character bought it.
Maxwell, the main character bought 493 blank pieces of paper and 87 ink cartridges?
Yep.
You really want to dig yourself deeper into this? You really do? Okay, fine. Maxwell. This is the Declaration of Independence.
It's historical fiction.
Okay. This is how to build a shelf from IKEA. It doesn't even have words.
It's set there.
It's set in an IKEA.
Yes.
During the Revolution.
Historical fiction?
This says plan. False drop papers to get an extension.
It's the plot.
Okay. This is the letter F. 250 font. Maxwell, stop. This is going to be your grade. I don't want any more excuses. I don't want to hear about giants or history or hobbits. You have 1 week to actually put a script together that makes sense. I mean, with the state that you're in, to make it in comedy, you're going to need a serious set of professionals to help you. Or at least a few bits of advice.
Awesome. A Few Bits of Advice is a show about me learning how to do comedy. And at the end, I'm going to do a big stand-up show where I take all the advice that I've learned from these interviews and put it into a giant stand-up set. So I thought, for you all, I'd practice a bit tonight. How does that sound? Awesome. So the first tip that I heard about writing stand-up is to write about what you know. And I went on vacation recently, and flying is a nightmare. It's crazy to me that a multi-billion-dollar industry can have less control over their service than a Denny's. I mean, if you got the same service at a Denny's that you got at an airline, it'd be preposterous, it'd be insane. Let's say that happens. You sit down at a Denny's. Pancakes cost $2,000. Before the food comes out, the waitress says, hey, before you can get on and eat your pancakes, we need Donald, our Denny's security, to caress you. to make sure the pancakes won't blow up. So you let the guy pat you down, and you sit down, you get to the booth, and I say, well, do I get the pancakes now? I already paid for them before I got to the Denny's. She says, nope, just a minute. So you wait, and your food was supposed to come out hours ago. Finally, the waitress comes back and says, I'm sorry, there's a pancake delay. We don't have anyone to cook them. You offered me the pancakes. Where's the chef? Well, we might have a cook in a few hours. So you stick it out. I mean, these are $2,000 pancakes. You're really hungry. And a few hours later, the waitress comes back and says, oh, we found a guy. He has no stove to cook it on. If you don't have the stove, don't have the chef, don't have the pancakes, why am I here? I paid for them. And so the waitress goes, I'm very sorry, sir. Your pancakes are canceled until next week. Please exit the Denny's. At this point, you've had it. You storm out. She rushes after you and you go, oh my God, we at Denny's are just so sorry. We're so sorry. In consolation, we can offer you 2 Denny's points. Just so sorry. We're so sorry. In consolation, we can offer you 2 Denny's points.
Is this seriously the funniest you can come up with?
I mean, they're laughing.
These are pity laughs. You know this.
Yeah, I know.
Get it together, man.
I'll do better. I'm trying.
You seriously need this interview. It's pathetic.
Got it. Welcome to A Few Bits of Advice. I am your host, Maxwell Crane. We are jumping right into it with our very first guest. You might recognize him from his hilarious and lyrically genius raps featured on not only his YouTube channel, but the critically acclaimed series, My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. You might also recognize him from his live show, The Crossword Show. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the immensely talented Zach Sherwin. Hey.
Hi, Maxwell.
Thank you so much for coming. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Tell me, what's your job? What do you work on? What have you been up to?
I'm a comedy writer and performer. Sometimes I'm doing stand-up. Sometimes I'm writing on projects for other people. I write on my own projects.
So you're the host and creator of the Crossword Show. Explain that a little bit. What is the Crossword Show?
Yeah, the Crossword Show is a project I came up with. It's basically a panel of comedians solving a crossword puzzle live on stage in front of a crowd.
How did that idea form? Where did that come from?
Somebody reached out on Twitter and said, hey, I follow you. I liked the wordplay that you put in your tweets. I make crossword puzzles for a living, and maybe we could find a way to collaborate on one, because it seems like the kind of thing that you would like. I would later learn that this guy, whose name is Will Nediger, is like a really prominent member of the crossword community, and I'm like super fortunate that he did something as cool as like reach out in that way. But at the time I was like, who is this stranger? I wrote back to him and I just said, okay, here's one idea off the top. What if you make a crossword puzzle grid with all the words in it, and I'll write clues for them, but they'll be rhyming rap lyrics? And he was like, oh, that's actually a cool idea. And fast forward to now, by the way, and that is like, it's still a core component of the show. But so I wrote that back to him, and then I was like, all right, it was the dark time where I was trying to figure out what to do with my career, my life, my creative endeavors. And I was kind of like half-heartedly noodling on this project and just seeing if it would turn into a thing. And I told a friend of mine about it, and he was like, oh yeah, I'd like to collaborate with you on that. And maybe we could, like, if you make a clue rap, it could be something that we release as like a piece of music. And then the key last piece was that I told another friend of mine about it, and he was like, this isn't like a song that you release, it's a live show. And then you have guests on and they solve that puzzle, and it's like fun to watch. And so the show came about that way. But I actually sort of had a dream around that time where I sort of was like having a conversation with someone, and I was like, I think I'm going to quit comedy. And they were like, yeah, I get why you would be thinking that, but before you do that, give this crossword project a shot. And so I wrote a show and I put it up, and it turned into a really beautiful project. And I'm glad that I stuck with it for one more go round because I love working on the show so much. But I don't know, man. Like I think it's important to be in, it's one skill to work on as you do this is to like learn to listen to your creative impulses and pay attention to instincts you have about like what's going to be interesting for you to do creatively.
I mean, obviously, with the crossword show and your raps on YouTube, and then your work in Epic Rap Battles of History and My Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, wordplay is a very common theme in a lot of your work. How did you come to find that as your sort of niche?
I'd say that the process was not deciding that wordplay was going to be my niche and figuring out how to occupy that niche. It was rather the other way around, that I was burdened with some kind of wordplay gene that I inherited from my family and was like, well, this doesn't seem to be going anywhere. We better figure out how we can use it. So, yeah, I definitely come from a bookish family, a lot of reading, a lot of crossword puzzle doing, and just puns and word games and anagrams.
Going through college, did you know you wanted to go into comedy? Is that a goal you had?
I was really directionless in college and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't even really have a sense that it was a question I needed to be figuring out. And then some friends in college started a comedy group and invited me to be in it. And for lack of a better plan, I was like, oh, it's nice to be asked to join a thing. Sure. And then when we graduated, I was sort of like vaguely gonna start pursuing law. And then a couple of the guys were like, hey, we're gonna try and make a go of this thing in the real world. And then, fast forward however many years later, and I'm the only one still doing anything remotely like comedy. So it really stuck. Being in my comedy group after college was where I first started having a place to like be like, oh, we're writing sketches that are like 2 to 3 minutes long and have a funny idea behind them. And I keep writing these rap lyrics. Like maybe it could be a thing that instead of taking 1 2-minute idea and turning it into a sketch, instead I could turn it into a song. And so I think that's kind of where the matching up of the rapping I'd been doing and the comedy that I was starting to do came about.
What advice would you give to yourself at my age?
I think the things to do at your age that are the most important are to write or create as much as you can and to find a place to do it. So if you're doing stand-up, to perform as often as you can. If you're making videos, to post as often as you can. If you're making short films, to produce as many of them as you can. But so tip 1 is create as much as you can. Tip 2 is bring it into the world as much as you can. Make it once you write it. And then the third thing I would say is it's important to move to a place where you can find a community. So probably that means moving to a city where there's a lot of comedy happening, like Chicago or New York or LA. Or finding the community in whatever city you live in so that it's not just you doing it alone, because that's too hard. So yeah, my tips are write a lot, produce a lot, and move to a place where there's community.
So as we wrap up, I just wanted to ask, I'm going to be doing one big stand-up show at the end of all this with everything I've learned. Would you want to come? I don't know.
It's in St. Louis?
Yeah.
I'm so flattered, Maxwell, but I live in Los Angeles and am an adult and have a life here. So I hope you understand, but I am not going to be able to make it.
Yeah. Got it.
I hope it goes great.
Awesome. Everyone, that was Zach Sherwin. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it.
All I'm saying, man, is that you can't be dripping if you're underwater drowning.
No, but the drip is what creates the drowning. I'm trying to tell you.
Max, are you okay?
You look like you need some help, man.
No, I'm just...
Writing some jokes.
You haven't written anything the last 2 class periods.
What? No, yeah, but no, I've written jokes, yeah.
Prove it.
I mean, what's the deal with airline food, right? The ingredients aren't good and it tastes bad.
He totally forgot how to write a punchline. What are we gonna do?
Just follow me, this can't get to it.
Guys, I did some research.
He's gone insane, dude. He's gone crazy. He's gone bonkers. He's gone bananas. I mean, he's just gone...
Listen, gentlemen, I am not a crazy man. I am a sane one, and I'm perhaps the only sane one here. Take a seat. Take a seat. Take a seat. Take a seat. This is months of research collected on a board.
Months?
Months!
This is not sane, Maxwell.
Listen, Carter, sane is relative. Listen, I can't write a punchline, not due to writer's block or lack of ability, but because they are stopping me. Listen, Robin Williams, Joan Rivers, Richard Pryor, George Carlin.
All those comedians are dead.
Listen, it is in a triangle.
You made it into a triangle. There's 4 parts. It could have been a square, a rhombus. It could have been a trapezoid for all I care. There's nothing here, Maxwell.
You know what? Let's look at the definition of a punchline. Final phrase or sentence of a joke providing humor. Look, it's the chemical makeup of dopamine, and it's the elements, and
Oh, man, it's all right, man. So, hey, you know what you need?
what?
Training montage!
All right, Maxwell, I believe you can do this. We're going to give you a joke, and you're going to come up with a punchline.
You've trained for this. You got this, all right?
Okay.
Come on, man, you got this.
What happened to the Italian chef?
Who died?
Who died?
Just think.
You got this?
Come on, man.
Spaghetti.
Oh,
I mean-
quite.
fine.
He passed away.
Yes!
He passed away!
I did
Yes!
it! I did it!
Oh my
Yes!
goodness! Yes!
Yes!
Oh my
Oh
god!
my god!
Oh my goodness! Okay,
All right.
let's try another one.
Let's
Let's
do
try another
this
one.
again. Let's do
Yeah,
this
let's
again.
do it
All
again.
right, I'm
You're on-
ready.
You're on
Yeah,
the roll.
ready.
Yes,
All
you're
right.
good.
What do you call a fish with no eyes?
He passed away.